You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Brie and Thais, episode 53. Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Brie Seeley. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
a movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
Because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this. Good morning, Amplifiers.
Thais Sky.
And Brie Seeley.
There's always that awkward pause. Like, do you think I'm going to introduce you? Because I sometimes do, so it gets confusing.
Yeah, we never really know.
Yeah,
I understand. We totally go on the fly, so.
No, I get it.
I keep flow with what comes up. No, I know. I see what you keep doing. So when Thais and I record these, now that we are in separate closets, we turn on our videos. Even though you guys can't see us, we turn on our videos to make, like, we do little hand signals. We have little behind the scenes chats, like, to make sure that we're flowing and all this stuff so that the podcast feels seamless for you guys. And she has her laptop on her lap and she keeps moving her laptop. So
Brie gets like a
full frontal.
Zoomed in full frontal of my boobs.
She's wearing clothes. So, it's still PG, but I definitely keep seeing Thais's boobs a lot as we're recording today.
Hey, they are mighty fine today. So they want attention, clearly.
All right.
So
one quick announcement before we get into all this. If you didn't hear the importance of our invitation last week, let us please reiterate to you how much we want to hang out with you in person. We have a dinner party coming up in Los Angeles and it's going to be amazing.
Yes. So, we do these almost every month, depending on how things are shaping up to be. And this particular month is going to be pretty amazing. We're holding it at Breather, which is a really beautiful space. So just come join us. We're gonna have all the foods, all the drinks, all the gifts.
An amazing female musician will be there performing acoustically for us.
Yes. So it's just going to be a good time. And we love our dinner parties. It's what makes us so happy about the Amplify Collective. So we would love to see you there.
Yeah, that intimate in-person connection piece, because as I just read someone posted about online, as much as virtual reality wants to overtake our entire world, nothing will ever substitute an in-person hug.
Yes.
And we give loads of them at our dinner parties. So
yes, we do. Yeah. Amazing. So we have a really amazing guest today. Lauren Alta is a special dynamic soul. I found her through the interwebs and I'm just obsessed with her words and her presence and all of who she is. And she just drops a lot of beautiful truths in our interview. So that's coming up a little bit later. But one of the things that she shared that is how she lives an amplified life is through really living and accessing and being aligned with her truth. So we thought we would start this conversation by talking about truth and what that means, what that looks like, what accessing our truth is really about. It's a word that I know gets thrown around in the spiritual community a lot, but what does it really mean? Why is it important? And what happens when we don't know what our truth is?
So I want to back up a hot second quick and start off with this understanding that up until a certain age, the quote unquote truths that we live by aren't actually ours.
Yeah.
Typically, they're things that we observe. They're things that we're told. They're expectations that are placed on us. They're societal norms that we adopt without question.
Yeah.
And so this idea of truth and really exploring your truth is kind of checking in with all of these things that have been brought into your life through external means, putting them through a filter of, is this aligned with me or not?
Yeah.
And then in that process, once you figure out what isn't aligned, once you clear out things that are not your truth, that you've maybe have been holding on to as your truth, then rewriting new truths for yourself.
Well, and I love that you started out there because I think that's important to note. I think before this millennium, really, millennium, century, the century, 100 years, uh, we never had the conversation of what our truth is, because our truth was directly aligned with the church or the government. So if the king said that this was the real, this was what's true, we either believed it or we got killed, right? And the same for the church. The church told you what to believe based on the book, and that was the truth. And there was no questioning of it. And if you questioned it, then you were kicked out of the village, or you were kicked out of.
Excommunicated.
Exactly.
My
So,
great grandmother in the earlier part of the 1900s got a divorce. Her husband was a bootlegger and an alcoholic, and she decided she did not want to be married to him anymore. And so they were very, very, very Catholic. And she went against the truth of the Catholic Church, and she divorced this man because he did not deserve to be married to her. And
mm,
she got excommunicated. She got kicked out of the Catholic Church
wow.
because she questioned the truth.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of our history is plagued and exemplified by these people who went against the truth. I mean, look what we celebrated on July 4th is independence of America from Britain, from England's truth, from the laws of England. And it required a whole war for us to, remove ourselves from that truth and start our own government. And with supposedly separation of church and state. Not sure that we got there, but so we're coming more and more into an awakening where it is now of critical importance for our evolution to be accessing and questioning and looking at what is societal's truths and what is our truth. Just like Bree said, through that filter system. What is true for the world? What is true for me? And I think one thing that I think is kind of important to also say before we really get into it is there's a difference between a lowercase truth and an uppercase truth. And I think we get these confused a lot. And then we use our truths as a way to not take responsibility and to be dogmatically close minded to other people's beliefs. So, for example, if someone were to say, you hurt me by your behavior and you lied and you manipulated, and you did all these things wrong, and you suck pretty much, and your response is, well, that's not my truth, right? Like, my truth is that I'm perfect and I didn't do any of those things. What we're inherently doing there is we're using what we call our truths as a weapon against the other person, and that's not the whole point of any of this conversation about truths and about what is real and what is here. And so we want to be careful when we use the word truths and when we're accessing our internal stuff to not use it as vindication for why we're right and someone else is wrong. And so that's lowercase truth. Lowercase truth is our opinion on something, our thoughts on something. It feels true to me that this is going on, but it may not feel true to you because we have two different experiences, two different perspectives, and we view life differently. So I think that that is the lowercase truth. And we have to honor that because that's what's coming up for us right now. But lowercase truths change, right? They kind of evolutionize over time. What may have been aligned and in truth for me when I was 20 may not be what's aligned and in truth for me when I'm 30 or 40 or whatever.
Can you just go into a little bit deeper the uppercase truth then and what
Sure.
that is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard. I think uppercase truth is more like maybe unchangeable truths about like universe and our relationship to it. So maybe an uppercase truth is
I've got one.
oh yeah, go for it.
An uppercase truth is that we are souls living in human form. So that's
Sure.
an uppercase truth. That's something that like is not changing
Yeah.
unless somehow universally the universe decides that we're going to be souls living in alien form or whatever, right? But that's not something. I mean, I guess some people would say that that is an opinion.
And I think that and I wanted to say that. So an uppercase truth is like God is love. Like that is a truth. Now, some people may not carry that truth, and that's fine. just because it's an uppercase truth doesn't mean everyone has to necessarily agree. They probably have some uppercase truths about their God, and that's fine that we honor them. We need to make sure that just because it's something that's true for us, whether it's lowercase or uppercase, other people don't necessarily have to agree or belong to that. So one of the things that, as spiritual women, Brie and I believe that God is love, and that love is a manifestation of God. I also believe that there is a sense of non-duality, that it's all good, it's all a part of some common evolution, common goal, future evolution. And it may suck for us as an individual, but as a collective we have to go through these collective learnings, and it's all good. And that the universe is on our side. And so these are big capital truths that I didn't always carry. I didn't always think this way. I used to be an atheist and very committed to my anger against God. Not that atheists are angry against God, but that was me. I was an atheist and angry against God. Um, and so how could I believe? I didn't want to believe in a God because I was so angry that God is such a sucky, shitty thing, causing so much terror in our planet, on our planet. So it's an evolution of that truth. So that truth is allowed to evolutionize too, but it's more major. And then our smaller truths of what's true for you right now. Well, what's true for me right now is that I'm a human being and I fuck up a lot. And that's my truth in this moment. And that's just where I'm at.
I love
Yeah.
it. So
Do you feel like,
let's talk quickly about how we know what truth is versus
mm,
untruth, because like we've mentioned, things change, and some of
yeah,
the things that we are gifted as truth when we are small or younger, or we see on TV or we read in a newspaper or whatever, we outgrow. And
hmm,
so what is that process of like, okay, so I've had this thing that has been my truth. Now here I am. I'm in this weird middle place where like I don't really think that's my truth anymore, but I don't really then know what my truth is. So
yeah.
what's that process look like?
Well, I think we've talked about this a lot, where we have to be careful with what we identify ourselves with and being too attached to having things be stagnant and stuck and defining ourselves that way. And we all do it, where we're like, well, the truth of who I am is that I'm an artist. And then we get closed minded to what else our lives could be if we didn't so identify and get so caught up in needing this truth to be who we are. And so it's important to know, as we're talking about this, that everything changes. And the more that we can be curious and open to how things change, the more we can flow with the grace that's life. And everything changes. Everything changes. And it's so painful when it does, especially things that we think are never going to change. Um, so when we're transitioning, or when we're maybe stepping out from an earlier truth, I think it's important that we just really get curious with, you know that served me at that point, and now I do not think it's going to serve me anymore. So I'm open to seeing what will serve me, and what is next, and what is my next evolution, what is my next truth, what is the truth of this moment inviting me to be in, to inviting me in.
So one of
um
the things that Tice and I talk about a lot is using your feelings as a guide to
yeah.
point you in the direction of what is truth for you. And
Hmm.
so oftentimes we'll rationalize things and be like, well, this truth worked for me for so long and it's been my truth. So it still has to be a truth. And we get all up into our heads about it,
Yeah, yeah,
even though we're denying that it doesn't feel like truth. Like it feels like shit if you feel into this thought of this thing. So, for example, for me with having kids, right? I've known for so long that my truth is that I don't want kids. And so for me to feel into this idea of having children feels like shit. It
yeah,
feels oppressive. It feels constrictive. It feels uncomfortable in a way that's not a good discomfort, because I believe in discomfort heavily, but it's not a good discomfort. And so for me to be in that feeling state, but then have the thoughts of like, well, but that's is what women do. Women have
hmm,
babies. So, I can logic myself out of these feelings I'm having and thus create a life that goes in direct opposition to my truth because I'm unwilling to feel
yeah.
what feels like truth in my body.
Yeah, and I think the work then lies in not only accessing our truth, but then expressing and bringing forth the manifestation of that truth. For example, about 3 months of me working for somebody else was like my first job after college. I recognized that working for somebody else was never going to make me happy. Like I could realize this truth that there was something bigger that was calling me, and that working for somebody else was not going to be the answer. But then it took another 6 years, 5 years of avoiding the call and working for other people and hoping that some company was going to like be the answer for all my prayers for me to finally honor this truth. And the reason why it's so scary is because it invites us to completely change our lives. It invites us to get uncomfortable. It invites us to um,
The good
move across
uncomfortable.
the country. And yeah. So our truth, it's like our guiding force. It's like our north star, and it's our responsibility to be checking in with it as often as possible. And people are like, well, I don't know what my truth is. You do. We all do. It's not like Brie and I or Laren or anybody else has some special access to our truth that other people don't. We all have this innate capacity to be with our true selves. The challenge is that we have so many ideas of what it should look like that it prevents us from actually being with what is here. Now,
So, oh,
that's not to say that in like 10 years, I could be working for somebody else and it could be the best thing ever. Because maybe at that point, my truth has changed and my truth is now calling for me to be in an umbrella of a team. And that's fine too. Go ahead.
so what I was going to add on to this idea of us, each of us having the ability and power to access our truth is I always like to remind people when they're getting started with this, like if this isn't a daily practice thing for you, it's not going to come immediately. It's
Yeah.
not like you're going to sit and be like, okay, what's my truth? And it's just going to come to you. It's a progression. It's like muscle training. You
Yeah.
don't walk into the gym and pick up the 200-pound weights straight off the bat. You're going to fucking kill yourself.
Yeah.
You start with the little 5-pound weights and you try them out and see how they feel. And then you move up to the 10-pound weights and you try them out and you see how they feel. But you can't just jump right into it, right? It's about creating that space every day. And Tyson, I always recommend start with things that are small. Start
Yeah.
with things that you don't have an emotional attachment with, just so you can get familiar with this feeling of what is my truth. And then as you're building that muscle, you can start applying it to more important things without your logic, your emotions, all that shit getting in the way. But you have to start somewhere. And I know a lot of my clients and a lot of people we encounter so often are like, well, I did it once and it didn't work. You have to continuously show up for it on a consistent basis in order for it to show up for you. It's like
Yeah.
building any relationship in the world. Tyson and I didn't get to where we are on the first day that we met in our relationship, right? It's been this process of us opening up to one another and getting to know each other and all these things. And the same goes for you getting familiar with and building a relationship with your truth.
So I want to share how this accessing our truth is a really powerful way to get us out of a trance. And then I want to talk about how we can then not only access our truth, which is what we've been talking about, but then share our truth and put our truth out there. So
Oh yeah, because that's a whole nother beast.
yeah, yeah. So I do a lot of work with women around worthiness and feeling unworthy, and I call it the worthiness wound because I'm finding that it's not just an moment of, oh, I feel unworthy, oh, I'm back to feeling worthy. It's actually it's so much deeper than that for us women. And then we get into this trance where all of our thoughts of, I'm unworthy, I can't do this, I'm unworthy, I can't do this, I suck, I'm broken, there's something deeply wrong with me, and we get into this cycle. Now for you, it may not be about worthiness, it could be some other wounding that you have where you feel broken and you feel inadequate. We all have moments where we fall into this type of trance, and it's very debilitating. It prevents us from showing up for other people. It prevents us from feeling good within ourselves. It feels very debilitating is what I'm trying to say. And so what I found is that when you're in those moments where it feels so debilitating in your head and you feel so unworthy, if you can ask yourself, is this true? Is this the voice of truth? Then what we can start to do is separate that there is this voice that is the manifestation of the wound, and there's the truth of who we really are, and it's two different things. And if we can create space between these thoughts and who we are, in that space we can start to look at those thoughts and say, I don't, that is not true. That is not true. Okay. So oftentimes when we're in that trance, we're believing those thoughts, we're believing that to be true about us. And so what I'm inviting is asking the question, whatever question serves you. For me is this the truth of who I am? For you, it may be, is this real? For you, it may be, what if this wasn't true? I don't, you have to play with it. But when you can separate yourself from those thoughts and then you're like, okay, this is me. And those thoughts are the manifestation of the worthiness wound. Okay. So then what is true? What is the truth? And the truth of who I am is that I'm a whole woman. The truth of who I am is that I am a perfect soul. The truth of who I am is that this is just a manifestation of the worthiness wound. So you see, we're using this tool of accessing our truth to actually then to call out and point out the thoughts that are actually not true. The majority of us run our lives believing all these thoughts, believing that we're unworthy, believing we can't make the money that we want, believing that, all the things that keep us feeling paralyzed. The more we can separate ourselves from those thoughts, the more we can start to find space, and in that space we can find healing, and then we can actually do something about it. So so I feel like that may be helpful for all of you as we're navigating this idea of accessing your truth. But let's talk about now speaking your truth, because this is
Oh
a big
yeah.
one.
This
Like,
is a big one because so in the one I was talking about with, me not having children, I kept that as a closely guarded secret for so long.
yeah,
Like I didn't feel safe in the world sharing that as my truth because it went so against the popular majority truth for so many women.
yeah,
And I mean, now I've clearly come out with it as my truth, and
yeah,
now it's become a popular majority truth for a lot of other women, and so it's more safe to share that. But I remember in college saying something about how I didn't want to have kids and just getting berated. Like
yeah,
so much so that I went up to my room and cried. Like
yeah.
just these women telling me about how terrible I was and how,
Mm,
I was just all these things because this was like the popular truth, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so for me to come out and say it, even the day that I went on the Today Show, the day that I submitted that Huffington Post piece about being child free and being sterilized and all these things, like, fuck, I had a panic attack. Like
yeah,
it was so scary to take this truth that I know that I can be at peace within my heart and take a stand for it in front of other people. That's
yeah,
a whole different conversation,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So for those of you women who cannot speak your truth because you're waiting for somebody to die, I honor you. For those of you who are so afraid to speak your truth because of the consequences and what that means for your life, and being fired, being discriminated against, being bullied, being hit again, being physically abused, I honor you.
Excommunicated.
hmm for those of you who feel so afraid to speak your truth because it will radically change your life and you're not going to feel safe anymore in your life, I honor you. This is not an easy conversation, and we all have to find a way to navigate our truths. And the reason why it's important to speak your truth is because that's how we create an alignment in our lives and in our souls. And but it's not always appropriate, and it often feels unsafe, and so we have to navigate what that looks like, and make sure that we're being bold but also taking care of ourselves. And so Brie felt safe enough and felt supportive enough in her community to share a very unpopular truth, but it was her truth to the world. And I think it's so beautiful. And I think these women who have the courage to be so brave about things that are so against what society depicts for us women is so necessary and so needed. And if you're listening and you have one of these, we all do, we all have these truths, but if you feel this calling that speaking your truth is going to liberate you in some way in your life, you got to do it. Got to do it. You got to
And
do it.
if you don't yet feel that way, my invitation to you, I didn't start, that wasn't the first time, like writing that piece wasn't the first time that I came out with my truth, right? My invitation is to find someone. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just one person,
Yeah.
but the liberation you can feel on a personal level from just sharing it with one person.
Yeah.
Or one of my former clients right now has a blog, an anonymous blog, and she gets to share her truth there fully and completely
Mm,
without anyone knowing that it's her. I think
yeah.
I'm one of 3 people that knows what her blog is and that it's her. So if you have the opportunity to entrust one person with
Yeah.
your truth, please, please, please do use someone you trust, someone that's going to love you and support you and, hold you no matter what that truth is. Find that person and share it, even if it's just with one person. You
And
don't
this
have
isn't,
to share it with a million people in order
yeah.
for it to be liberating and in order for it to make an impact.
And it's not only liberating for the self, which it is, but it's liberating for us women. We need more women's stories in the world. We need more uh, examples of the varying degrees of what it looks like to be a woman and to live a life as a woman. And we need to share the messy, and we need to share um, all our experiences. I we for example, we don't often talk about having miscarriages. It seems like a sense of shame to have a miscarriage, yet it's so frequent and it happens so often. And the minute I cannot speak from personal experience, but I can imagine that if you have something like this going on in your life and then you read these stories of these women who have experienced something similar, you immediately feel this sense of, I'm not alone in this. And that required them being brave about sharing about their story, right? So it's a collective liberation when we can really rally around our truths and really speak our stories and do the work necessary to put ourselves out there in whatever way, like we said, whatever way feels best for you. We do not need everybody to have a billion follower platforms. We need everybody to just be who they are and to just show up in that truth. And the word truth, like, this is like when you start talking about like something like intuition a million times, you start getting like, wait, what's intuition again? Like, it's one of these concepts that are so like just beyond our head. It's so beyond like what we can comprehend, and it's so not touchable. So it's
Tangible.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
tangible. It's like, what's truth, what's intuition, what's this, what's higher self, what's soul self, what's this self, right? You can
But the
get
more that you play with it though, the more tangible it becomes. Like,
right.
so the feeling that I have when I'm accessing my tuition feels so fucking real to me, right?
Right. Right.
Like the feeling that I get when I get a no feels so fucking real, but only because, you
Right.
know, I've been doing this work for the last 10 years.
Right.
So the more that you play with it, the more real it will become to you.
Right. Right. Totally. And this is not a head concept. It's like trying to teach enlightenment. It's so we can't. It's very hard to teach something. This is a what we're doing is we're opening up the gateway for you to play with accessing your own lowercase and uppercase truth, and playing with getting curious with how it changes. And maybe it'll be helpful for you to look at what were your truths in the past. Like it's easier to look in retrospect, so maybe we can start there. Like, in retrospect, in that relationship, my truth was, I wasn't in love with him, but I thought I was at the time. So what was that difference? How do I know that that's my truth, right? Like, start playing there and see what happens. And you can tell when a woman is aligned in her truth. You can so tell how she lives her life when it's fully aligned in uppercase and her lowercase truths. And so follow and surround yourself with more of those women and see how they operate their lives. And that will start showing you what's possible for you as well. All right.
Awesome.
Are you ready to bring
Well,
Lauren on?
I think so. She has a lot more to say about truth.
Yes, she's divine. So let's do it. Even the best offices can't meet every need. Sometimes you need a huge conference room, sometimes you need a quiet nook, sometimes you need to be in London for a meeting tomorrow, and sometimes you find out last minute that the attendance for your meeting happening in 2 hours isn't 3 people, it's 30. Take a deep breath, because Breather has you covered.
Breather has solutions to all of your booking nightmares with beautiful, inspiring workspaces for your offsites, team meetings, client meetings, or even individual work. Breather gives you access to professional workspaces without the overhead and without the commitment.
The best part? You only pay for the time you need. Whether it's a month, a day, or even just an hour, there are no minimums.
Get the right workspace when you need it, where you need it. Breather has locations in LA, New York, San Francisco, Palo Alto, Boston, Chicago, DC, Toronto, Montreal, and London, with more being added.
Don't overpay for space you don't need. Book a breather space just for the time you need it and spend hundreds instead of thousands.
Go to breather.com to gain access to the extensive network of workspaces and book instantly. Whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a solopreneur, Breather has the perfect space for you.
Okay, so first off, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to say this again. I said it before we were recording, and I just feel the need to share this with the world again. But I literally have the song, it's all about that bass, no trouble, like stuck in my head. And I needed to say that again because I feel I just need to make sure that the listeners also get that song stuck in their head for the remaining portion of our conversation today.
And now you have perspective about what's going on in Thaisa's head while we're having this conversation. So
but in any case, we have a really special guest with us today. I met Lauren through a Facebook group that I'm in on the Facebook worlds, and she just has such a grace and a power to her that I was immediately drawn to her work and her essence. And it's just such an honor and a privilege to have you on our podcast, Lauren.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful introduction. I'm really honored and excited to be here. You two make me smile. So I'm excited to dive in to this beautiful conversation with you.
Well,
I love it.
I'm going to give the listeners a little more background on you just so they can have a kind of a premise. So Lauren Alta is a soul guide, shadow diver, and spiritual teacher known for burning down the stale, fluffy, boring self-help formulas and helping women ignite true personal liberation. Her workshops, retreats, and one-on-one intensives have been called transformation temples for unruly, soulful women. She believes that loss, grief, and pain are healing initiations, and if honored, they will fortify you, bringing you through the shadows into the light of your soul. Using movement, meditation, ritual, art, and ancient practices, Lauren guides women on a spiritual journey, helping them surrender their facades, shed their fears, and finally come home to themselves.
I'm going to start betting on how many times Bree stumbles over the bio reading. I'm going to do it over even here.
I have so many questions too. That's part of why I'm stumbling is I'm like, I want to ask about this and this and this and all these things. So if you were to read her resume, it would include Microsoft, nonprofits large and small, as well as a 5-year stint as a MAC makeup artist. But what should really be there are the 23 countries she's studied, healing in backwater ashrams, jungle temples, and mountain monasteries, working with spiritual teachers, medicine women, and shamans from many faiths, and spiritual paths to learn about trauma, healing, and transformation.
Oh my God, you're like amazing!
The essence of her work is distilled to freedom, supporting you in finding it, cultivating it, and living it. Because your power is in this moment, in this breath, in this one courageous, against all odds, bravely true yes.
Your bio alone is like the best thing. We don't even need to interview. We don't need to the bio
and
is done. We're done. That's amazing.
Oh, I love you all so much. Thank you.
So, my love, tell us, what does it look like for you to live an amplified life?
The only answer I really have is telling the truth and being the truth, no matter what the circumstances or expectations are. I think we live in a culture, and particularly a culture where the expectations of women are that we modify and mold and shape ourselves to be more palatable. And living an amplified life for me means being fully true to who I am at all times and all moments, with no matter who I am or what the circumstances are.
I love
Mm,
it. Well, that's
done.
such a great, unique answer as well. So I want to dive in. I told Thais earlier that there was one aspect.
Like Brie already has this whole conversation planned. Like
Whole thing.
she already has like all of
Just
the
one
things.
question. Just one question. So, in relation to this,
Mhm.
I want to know how you use ritual to regularly connect with your truth and find that within yourself.
Mm. Oh, I love ritual so much. And part of it began as a child. I think my relationship to ritual began as a child because I grew up in the church, in the Christian church, and the denomination is African Methodist Episcopalian. So the part about
Say that 10 times fast.
right, the part about Methodist is the part that I really love because it's now I can't even say it, but there's a methodology in the sense that every Sunday we have the same structure of services. And so that ritual of having church service begin, have a middle part and end the same way is something I looked forward to. I knew how we were going to open. I knew how we were going to create a sacred space together. I knew how we were going to navigate it and how we would close it. And so ritual is a daily practice for me. One of my daily rituals is an hour of Vipassana meditation every morning. Sometimes I do an evening sit too, which helps me just come into myself. I think of as a soul cleanse, as a presence, as a just a witnessing of myself, of what's true in that moment. And so whatever's true gets to emerge, whether that's anger or sadness or questions or anxiety or confusion or just solid confidence and certainty. And that's the part that really anchors me in witnessing myself. It's a daily ritual of just being present to what is.
For those who are listening who may not be familiar, can you explain a little bit about what Vipassana is?
Sure. So Vipassana, in the way that I've learned it, and the way that it was taught to me, is the meditation practice that was passed down from the Buddha. And it went through different parts of Asia and ended up in Myanmar. And the way to learn it is through a 10-day silent meditation retreat. That's the only way to actually learn it. And I've done 4 at this point, and it's the hardest thing in the world. You don't talk to anybody, you don't look at any, you can't have eye contact, you don't touch anybody. You are just in this.
You can't have eye contact. I didn't know
No.
that.
Yeah, it's as if you are on a solo meditation retreat.
Mm.
And you are there and you just sit in your shit for 10 days for 11 hours a day, just meditating. And
Oh
you
my
learn
God.
the practice, but all the stuff comes up. All of the gunk that you're trying to avoid and not pay attention to and be cute for or polish for the outside world. No, you just sit in it until it shifts.
What do you
Mm.
do for the other 13 hours?
You get a little sleep, you eat a little, and then there's some periods where you can like relax and integrate. But other than that, that's all you do.
Okay, so let's talk about spiritual bypassing, my friend, because I feel like you and I are on that same level, and I would love to know more about your thoughts on spiritual bypassing and why, it's so hard for women to show up in their real truth. Like
Mm.
what is it where we lose our power so quickly and we use these spiritual practices to numb ourselves instead of to
Mhm.
actually go through the shit?
I think there's so much currency in being numb, right? There's so much value in being checked out, but looking good, playing the part, soothing the ego, that we live in a culture that will, for the most part, never ask us what's actually going on. Like
Mm.
how we actually feel. We could live from birth to death without anyone actually inquiring about how we are actually feeling, what we actually think and believe, who we truly are. So I think it's not just women, which is true. It's currency to be pretty and live on a certain surface level. Not to say you can't be pretty and have depth. Of course you can, but it's
I
also
know, it's fine. Oh my God. I need to get off my high horse. We just had another podcast interview where I was like, making sure everyone knew how perfect I was. I need to stop it. I am not perfect, people. I do not believe I'm perfect. I promise.
Oh, I love it though. I mean, your sense of humor is so amazing. We need levity. That's the other piece, right? Like spirituality, it gets either this like super only focus on the light and the fluffiness, or what I consider fluffiness, or focus on the hard and the struggle and the like working suffering, and there's no levity. So I love the laughter and the joy that you bring to the conversation. It's so necessary because we're human. We need to laugh. Laughter heals.
We joke so much about spiritual shit. Like the stuff that spiritual people do is like fucking banana. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. We laugh about it all the time.
What's your favorite thing? What's the thing that makes you laugh the most?
Okay, are you ready, Thais? Are we going here? Do you know?
Yeah, we're going.
Okay,
We're going.
So Thais and I were both gifted with yoni stones, which, for those of you that don't know, it is an egg-looking thing
that you stick up your hoo-ha.
That you stick up your vagina, and it is typically made of something like jade or rose quartz or one of these quote-unquote healing.
Okay, so Brie has her yoni stone on her altar.
Yeah,
as a representation of her root chakra, which is amazing.
I didn't know what else do you do with it. I'm like, I don't really like human.
Well, you use it as a yoni, like you stick it up your yoni, like that's what
I know. But I just think it's humorous to me the lengths at which we go to be spiritual. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the thing for me, I think it's really funny and how necessary it feels to blame the planets for
we are
our shit
in Mercury retrograde,
and there is of course we're part of the thing, we're part of nature, and people who are more sensitive and are attuned, of course they're affected, but you know, there's a lot of people who use these planets as excuses for why shit sucks.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're part of an alive universe, right? Like that's not avoidable. We know that. And I've seen a pattern of kind of throwing your hands up, like, no, I can't do anything because Mercury's here or Venus is there or the sun.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's your personal responsibility in this alive universe? We're all connected.
Yeah.
And your responsibility and action counts.
Or like, I'm a Scorpio, so I get to be a bitch. Like, it's just, you know, like it's totally fine. It's just my Scorpio's coming out. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
And I'm a Taurus, so I get to be stubborn and selfish. It's fine.
I'm a Taurus too.
Are you?
I am. I like to say focused.
Ah.
I'm using that word from now on, Thais. I'm not being stubborn, I'm being focused.
Exactly.
Thanks for that.
Okay, so back to spiritual bypassing.
Yes,
because you were sharing so beautifully about numbing, and I love that. Keep going with that.
So part of it that's true in my work and kind of how I approach my work, because this has been a big pivot for me, because I've been doing my work in the way that I've been doing it for 20 years, almost 20 years, 17 years this year, and my work is really potent, it's deep, it's intense, and it's intimate, and it really happens in person, in sacred space with the woman or the women that I'm working with in person. And I brought I started my website in 2011 and started trying to have this internet business, and got kind of caught up in the internet in 2011. And what I learned was how much people externalize their spiritual practice based on what you're, and I love a yoni stone. I think that's fantastic, but people put it in their external tools and trinkets instead of internalizing their internal spiritual process. And I think that is where the spiritual bypass happens, that we put it in all of these things which are useful tools, but ultimately the internal transformation has to happen internally. It's not about wearing the right beads or the fanciest yoga pants or the most designer coconut water. You can do all of those things and still be disconnected from your soul, or you can do none of those things and eat pork rinds and have a deep, rich spiritual world. So,
and I feel like that's actually, I've never thought about it this way before, but now that you're saying it, it almost feels like this is also how cultural appropriation becomes a thing.
Yeah.
where we get obsessed with the trinkets and the things that we
Mhm.
feel like is the external that somehow is going to get us somewhere, but we don't actually incorporate it and use it. You know, one of the things, I am an avid chanter. I chant every day. Chanting is my connection to God. It is very sacred to me. And people have asked me, well, why don't you teach this? Or why don't you, educate people on chanting? I'm like, because it's not mine.
Mm,
It's
mhm,
my heart's, and it's India's. And
mhm,
I'm a
mhm.
white girl from Maryland, like I'm not in a place or space to be teaching this and make it real reverence to the culture that it came from.
I love that. That's so wise and very rooted in truth, right? Like
Hmm.
that is to me what spirituality is about, is what it's rooted in the truth. And I love that you're not trying to capitalize on that or make money from it, but that you're using it as your own process for transformation and healing and spiritual connection to God.
Yeah. And I feel like if we as a collective have done this with yoga, it would be a
Mhm.
different conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I don't have a question.
I have a
I
question.
just want to keep talking.
So, Laren, being
Yes.
guided by your truths on a, regular, constant, frequent, whatever basis, what happens for you in the process of your truths shifting? So, we all have this where,
Mhm.
especially as we're moving from children into adulthood, the things that we were taught as truths by our culture or our family or whatever change. So, when you're, in your practice and you come upon an a truth that you realize is no longer truth for you, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. I can go back to that transition point when you were saying transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So I was raised in a family of college educated folks and educators. So I'm fourth generation college educated from both sides of my family. Have undergraduate and graduate degrees going back to my great grandfather, who had two undergraduate and two graduate degrees, with one
Wow.
from Cornell University. So,
Wow.
right. So, education, he was born 2 years after enslavement ended. So education was liberation in a lot of ways for my family.
Mm.
So there was never an expectation, never a question of whether I was going to go to college or not. It was just, what college are you going to go to? And that was it. There was no other conversation around education post high school. So I knew I wanted to take a year off and travel, but I was caught up in the momentum of going from high school and I just went to college, and I was unhappy. I didn't really want to be there, but I kind of muscled through. I figured out how to survive it and was miserable. So the summer after my first year of college, I sat my mom down and I said, okay, I'm going to take a year off and I want to go to India. I want to see the world. I want to travel. And she looked at me as if I had seven heads and turned like, spotted or something, and was like, oh, no, no, I don't know what that means. Like literally, she said, what does that mean? We don't do that in this family. You're going to go back to college and finish school because that's what we do, right? That's the cultural norm that I grew up in. And so I said, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go back to college. And completely stepped out of what was true for me, completely stepped out of what I knew my heart and soul were telling me to do for myself, because I was following someone else's expectations about who I was and how I was supposed to live my life. For the first real time, like my mom's pretty flexible in a lot of ways, but this was not one of those things. And I went back my sophomore year and hit a rock bottom depression uh, that I couldn't get out of. That I couldn't go to class. I couldn't get. There was times when I was literally laying on the floor and couldn't get up off of the floor to answer my door because I was so out of alignment trying to please someone else that I couldn't get back in my flow. I was so disconnected. And so at the end of that year, I went back to my mother and said, well, I don't care what we do in this family. I'm taking a year off. And I have to figure out what's true for me and start following my own path. So that was kind of where our paths diverged in the wood. And I came back to school and dropped out again. And then eventually I did graduate 8 years after my incoming class, but I had to do it my way and on my own time. So part of what I've learned through all that. And it took a lot of years of reckoning with myself and with my family. And because there's like purse strings attached and money and expectations and family reputation and, all this stuff that's muddled up in what happens when you're true to yourself. I say truth because that's the lesson that I got at the end of it. But it took a lot of scars and pain and disappointment of other people at projecting and pushing that against me to really trust myself at all costs. And so that's what I've learned, that even if the world doesn't understand or is disappointed, even if my mother, who's probably the most important person in my life, doesn't understand, I have to choose me because I know what happens when I don't.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing that so many people go through, and a lot of people I know don't have the courage to stand up for themselves and their truths. And so I mean, I don't know if you can go any deeper into what that process was for you, or if there were, shifting relationship dynamics, because I know that this can be something so incredibly painful to go against the grain of what, we've been, so many, and not to say that my mom does this, mama, I love you. She's totally listening right now. But, the moms that are like, I raised you, you're my kid,
Yeah.
you do what I say. So, was there any shift in that relationship, and how did you kind of reconcile that, if you're willing to go there, of course?
Sure. Well, this is where my Tauran focus is very useful.
Focus, focus, love it.
Be and it, so I've told this story several different times, and my mother has heard me tell it. Um, and she still has a lot of resistance around it. She still has a lot of pain around it, because even though I have my degree and am successful in my own way and have a life that is great, and because her fear was that if I didn't go to college, I would fall into poverty. um, and so even though none of those fears came true, she still it's still painful for her to hear that I was depressed, that she was doing something to me that was impactful in a hurtful way, all these things. So part of it is learning to trust myself ultimately, that and knowing that it's not always going to be pretty, that it's not always going to feel good, that everyone's not going to get along, like anticipating that, not saying to make it happen, right? But to anticipate that you can't be a people pleaser and a self pleaser all at the same time. And so learning how to trust myself and give myself what I needed, and to still engage in the conversations with my mom around it. So to not shut her off or block her off, but to still stay connected. And I've had colleagues or friends of mine, people who I literally grew up with, um, are all PhDs, MDs, um, have graduate MBAs, are very high achievers and successful in very traditional ways. And I've had some of them say, "Oh, Laren, when are you going to just settle down and have a normal life? What are you running away from? I've been to 23 countries." And instead of saying, "Oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about your adventures," it's like, what are you running away from that you want to go
Wow.
to the world, and you don't want to just buy a house and have 2.5 kids? So
2.5 kids.
it's
Don't forget about the white picket fence.
and the white picket fence, right? And that's not my dream. It's never been my dream. It's not fulfilling. I know that if I was chasing that dream empty, I would feel as depressed as I did in my sophomore year of college. So it's this continuous conversation and trusting myself to still create the life I want to live.
Hmm.
So
So, I am apparently, I have found out in the past few months, going through my Saturn return.
mm,
I am turning 28 in June. So apparently that's happening. Like, that's a thing. And I am realizing how my truths are changing, my values are changing, and what I want in my life is changing.
mhm,
And it's been such a fascinating experience of finding your own way through a world that is so consumed in making you feel like who you are is bad and wrong.
mhm,
And I love that you dive into these deeper conversations with people about grief and trauma and
mhm.
wounding, because it's so important. And I'm curious, why? Like what got you to a place where you felt called to talk about these things as opposed to the other fluffy things that I guess one could be talking about as a coach and a healer and a teacher?
Um, I would never be satisfied with superficial conversations.
Is it the Taurus? No, it can't be the Taurus. That's not what it is.
I think it's I think it's the well, part of I don't have all the answer to that. I don't know exactly why.
You don't have like a Scorpio in there somewhere that's
no
like
Scorpio. Taurus and Scorpio are opposite.
I think
Yeah.
it is a little Taurusy though too, because I have zero tolerance for
Mhm.
superficial conversations, but also maybe an old soul.
I like how how we're
Yeah.
trying to just blame some astrological phenomenon for her desire to actually just have depth and meaning in her life.
I think
Uh,
it's all of it, right? It's old soul, it's Taurus. It's who I was born to be, essentially. And I think that's the thing. I think if we all gave ourselves permission to be who we actually are, we would have a lot deeper meaning in our lives.
yeah.
Wait, can you repeat that? Because that was some serious fucking truth. If
I
we all
said it
gave ourselves permission.
to be who we actually already are.
Oh, yes.
We would have deeper meaning in our lives. Like if we weren't always striving to be better, to improve, to pretend, to look good, if we weren't trying to lose the last 10 pounds or, whatever, and just like loved and accept who we actually are right now, we would be able to be connected to ourselves, each other, the God, the world so much more deeply.
Not only do I have full body goosebumps, but I also just got tears in my eyes. So that's a mic drop moment.
We interviewed our friend Luna, and she calls goosebumps truth bumps.
I love that.
Bree just got some truth bumps.
Mhm.
I love it. I don't have any questions. I just want you to keep talking. So, just keep talking, and we'll just just your words and your just the way you're just so wise. You're just so no. You're like just this wise. I just imagine, like a sage, like a goddessy sage, and I'm staring at a picture of you, and you're bald and beautiful with your dark lips, and okay,
Are you done?
I'm done.
So,
Thank you.
one, everything she just said was true. And two, so I think that one of the first steps with this is a lot of people just don't give themselves permission. Like they don't give themselves permission to do this. So do you have any tips or advice on, like, everyone always asks like, oh, how did you stop giving a fuck what other people think of you? And I'm like, I just gave myself permission to do it and I just did it. So do you have any thoughts on like how to break free like into our own truth?
Yes. I think it's helpful to think about it like concentric circles. Um, Part of what gets us jacked up is that we start from the outside in, right? We start trying to look good for the world, the outside. How do we present well? Even if we're empty, even if we're disconnected, even if we're falling apart inside, as long as the image is good and no one really knows, then we're good. And eventually, most people reach a point in their life that they realize that's not working anymore. That has hit a wall. And whether that means they start then, some people get it and they're like, okay, they start going inside and say, okay, how can I shift that? Or they keep going to plastic surgery or more diets or more money or more mala beads or more whatever they think the external world is going to solve.
Wait,
More yoni stones.
a mala bead is not gonna save my life. I don't understand. But I spent $108.
You let me know how that goes for you.
Are they really priced $108? Is that like a thing?
Of course it is.
Oh
Anything
my God.
yoga related is $108.
Learn something new every day.
Any Lululemon pants, Brie, is $108.
Oh.
My mind is blown.
You all are hilarious. I'm just grateful. You need a TV show. I'm like looking for more.
Do you know someone? I
mean, we are open to making connections if you know people.
So I think part of it is like, how do you really not care what people think, is starting with the most core concentric circle. The internal concentric circle is you. And that's where we go back to accepting who you are. feeling what it feels like to be uncomfortable in your body, feeling what it feels like to have grief and sadness with yourself. Like, what does that disappoint? What does that feel like? Honoring it, acknowledging, accepting it, not fighting it, not resisting it. And once you're actually in it, not just theorizing, not just talking about it, not trying to fix anything, it'll shift, it'll change. And then the next concentric circle are your intimate relationships, right? Like your family, your siblings, well, not even your siblings, your children, like your partner, that. But people often go there. They're trying to fix their partner, trying to fix their kids. They're trying to make sure everybody's, and they're still crumbly, disconnect on the inside.
Crumbly. That's the best description for someone being out of their body. They're crumbly.
Crumbly, right? Like dry, disconnected, hard.
Yeah.
And then but you can't have a really sustainable, loving, nourishing, transformative connection with people in that second circle if you don't have it with yourself.
Mm.
And then it's your community, your intimate community, family, friends, colleagues, and then it's your larger community, and then it's the world, not the other way around. So sit with yourself and see what's there.
Okay, let's talk about this because yes, for all of this. And let's talk about the social justice perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the social justice perspective, there's actually very little of self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least from the outside, there's obviously the individuals who may be doing it differently, but from the outside, it feels to me that the social justice world is really focused on changing the external and not a lot of self-care. And so where can we find a middle ground where we can be activists and do work in the social justice realm without losing ourselves and without getting crumbly?
It has to start with the self. It all starts with the self. As you mentioned in the introduction, I've worked in nonprofits, large and small. I have friends who are outside of the nonprofit industrial complex and are very much frontline leaders of a lot of powerful, transformative, radical social justice movements. And I've known people both in and outside of the nonprofit world who have terrible self-care. And so while their nonprofits are doing good work, they're treating their colleagues, they're treating their employees terribly. And so it's a toxic environment, even though the world sees the progress, they're still human beings who are being impacted negatively. And so you can't make productive change externally if you aren't treating people who work for you well. I don't care if it's nonprofit or corporate America. I don't care, if you have a megaphone or if you're behind a computer all day, you still have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people with love.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's more destructive.
Yeah, and I love that we're talking about this because oftentimes I feel like the self-care stuff, the self-love stuff, the doing our own inner work is often seen as selfish. And as Taurians as well, we're also,
oh my goodness.
notoriously selfish. So can you dive into that a little bit about self-care, self-work, all this stuff is selfish?
I don't think selfish is a bad word.
Ooh, this is how, she
We're
just said it.
You,
she just dropped it. You know what? I have Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon. I can handle your Taurus ass, okay? Bring it.
I think because quiet as it's kept, people who are trying to take care of everybody else and not taking care of themselves are being selfish too, right? Like they're still trying to feel good by taking care of other people, which is a selfish desire. Just because it's not it's not ending with them. I mean, it is. Just because it's going to someone else first doesn't mean it's not selfish. So I think we have to take the charge and the stigma out of being selfish, because it's this distorted it's like if you have a distorted or disordered relationship to food itself is not bad. It's your relationship to it. So it's how do we change our relationship to getting our needs met in a way that still feels generative and loving and spills over? How can we live from the overflow of that? Because I think part of it is we're so undernourished, so malnourished with self-care and actually taking care of our real needs, not the superficial ones, but our real needs to be seen, to be witnessed, to be loved by ourselves, that we get it all bent out of shape. But if we did that truthfully, we would have so much more to give other people without needing something in return.
Done.
So good. Thais just messaged me and she's like, how are we on time? And I'm like, we're so over. But this is so good.
Let's just keep talking for the next 3 hours. It's totally fine. Lauren, you don't have anywhere else to be, right? Good. See? Done. Well, what we'll do is we'll wrap up this portion and then we'll just take this into our extended cut because I have 2 really good questions that I've been like percolating on and I'm excited to ask you. So if you're listening, well, you are listening if you're hearing this. So you're listening. So join our Facebook group if you're not there already at www.beamplified.community and you'll get Lauren's extended cut version or not version interview where she takes off her bra and it's divine and amazing. And Lauren, for those of people who are listening and want to know more about you and your divine self, where can they find you?
You can find me at sisterfire, sisterfire.com. I'm in the middle of a rebrand, but that will always lead you to me.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
And are you on socials? Where are you on the platforms?
Instagram is my favorite social to play and stalk. So you can find me at Lauren Alta, Lerinalta.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to go
have a brand new follower right now.
Yep. Oh, I'm going right now.
Now you have 2.
Oh, now you have 2. I love it. All right. Well, go be amplified, people. Go find us on all the socials. We love social media. We are on there way too often. You're welcome to find us at the Amplify Co. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing your voice with us today. We so appreciate you. Obviously, we're like Googling over you. And go be amplified, people.
Thank you.